Hello everybody, today is October 28th and we're going down to the Egyptian Theater for a screening of the new Netflix movie called In Your Dreams. We don't know too much about the movie, but we'll check it out and see how it is. The attire was cocktail chic or pajama chic, so we didn't really know what that meant, so we're just kind of dressy, kind of casual. Interactive French toast.
That doesn't kill me financially because it's easy to come up with designs.
Right.
It's easy to imagine, oh, everybody's going to like this thing. And then you make it.
Well, that was a journey. Basically, we got here at 5 o'clock. We were supposed to be able to get in at 5 o'clock, and then they said, if you're with Asians in Animations, go stand in that line. So we stood in the line, we waited, and waited and waited until 6:30 when the movie was supposed to start, and then they were like, we're full. Go away. So they said, actually, if you want to come back at 8 o'clock, you can come to the after party. But while you wait, here is a plush and 3 months of Netflix for free. So we took that. We went to a nearby bar, hung out for an hour and a half, came back, and they let us into the after party, which was very nice of them. And it was pretty fun. So we got a lot of food and drinks, and we saw a lot of people that we know, and listened to the music, and yeah.
Yeah. We got free food.
Yeah, so I mean, it ended up being a fun night, but for a minute there, it was a little questionable.
For a good hour and a half, it was like, man, we weren't let in.
We were really debating if we were even gonna try to do the after party after the bar, because some people said come back, some people said do not come back.
Yeah.
But we're like, well, our car is over there, and we were only a block away, so we're like, well, when we're on the way to the car, might as well just check. And when we went, there were other people also waiting to come to the after party, so, you know, paid off.
Yeah, we had free parking, so,
Yeah.
you know. So
I guess I'll insert the picture here of the sign that says, don't give up, or something like that. Very fitting.
Very fitting.
But yeah, we didn't get to see the movie, but it is coming out on Friday, so, you know, we'll maybe watch it then.
Maybe.
You know, I mean, now we have Baloney Tony, the giraffe plush, decked out. So, you know, I'll insert some clips of him and the party, so yay!
Oh, you technically heard me. Wow. You had me believe like how many months.
favorite commercial.
Oh my god, yeah.
Each other. Basically.
So it all kind of started back in 2013, probably before some of you were born. I was still working at Pixar at the time, and I saw House of Cards. Do you guys remember that show? I was a Netflix subscriber at the time. I'm still a Netflix subscriber. And that show just blew me away. Like, I couldn't believe that a DVD mailing company made a show that was that good. And I think, you know, I think it blew everybody else away. And over the next couple of years, they doubled down on originals. And I kind of just had this instinct that Netflix was going to change things in a really big way in the industry. And so I pitched this crazy idea to two of my friends about starting a company to take advantage of this sort of streaming revolution that was coming. And to my surprise, they were crazy enough to do it. So we jumped ship, we left Pixar, we started this company, and we called it Cuckoo Studios because Crazy Studios just sounded stupid. Yeah, we started this company. Now, starting a company is like incredibly exciting. You know, the future is like sort of unlimited and it's all potential, but it's also, there's a side of it that's very unglamorous. So this was our first day or first week as a company, and we had this tiny 100 square foot office. We were so poor that we couldn't even afford enough chairs for the three of us to sit on, so we sat on the floor a lot. That chair in the right-hand corner, I stole that from Pixar. So we had very, very humble beginnings, but with a lot of hard work and a lot of luck, we now have our own chairs. So when we started, we sort of spent the first year just sort of playing and dreaming of different TV shows and movies that we wanted to see that we felt like nobody else was making. And one of those ideas was an animated movie about the world of dreams. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of you are in animation, so you know that a dream movie in animation has sort of been a white whale in the industry. Every animation studio that I've been to has had a dream movie in development at some point or another. And I think the reason is because it's such a ripe world for the medium of animation. You can kind of do anything in animation and anything can happen in dreams. And I just couldn't believe that nobody had done this yet. So me and my co-founder Stanley, we dove in and we tried to start developing this movie in the dream world. And then we quickly discovered why that nobody had made a dream movie in animation. It's because it's really hard to give a dream movie stakes, right? Anything can happen in a dream, and when anything can happen, nothing really means anything. And how do you connect the dream world with what happens in the real world? So we were sort of banging our heads on the wall, and then one lunch, we cracked the code. And this is the pizza box from that lunch where we sort of unlocked the movie and sort of figured it out. The innovation really, or the key was really giving the Sandman the ability to make Stevie's dreams come true. So then suddenly she had a reason to be in the dream world, a reason to seek out the Sandman so that whatever happened in the dream world could actually affect her real world. And so once we unlocked this, the ideas just started pouring out of us. And again, we were so poor that we ran out of paper. So the next best thing was this pizza box, which is this big white surface. So we started writing down all these ideas. There was actually another side to this pizza box, which was the bottom of it. It had a map of the dream world and how it worked, but it was filled with grease stains and cheese, so we had to throw that away. But this is still sitting in our office. So we basically had this great, fantastic world of dreams, and a way to connect the dream world to the real world. But we just needed to figure out, okay, well, what is it that this character wants? What dream does this character want to come true? And for that, I leaned on something that happened to me when I was a kid. So when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I woke up one morning and my mom was at the front door with her bags packed. And she had to sort of gently explain to me and my brother that she was leaving for a little while because she had to figure things out for herself. in our family. Her and my dad got married really young. I think, parenthood was sort of thrust upon both her and my father, and she had to sort of figure out who she wanted to be and what she wanted with her life. And of course, as a 6-year-old kid, I didn't understand any of that. All I knew was that my life was about to change in a huge way. And I remember watching her leaving. And I remember feeling like the only thing I wanted in the whole world was to find a way to keep my family together. And so that was sort of the big inspiration for this film. Luckily I wasn't alone. I had my brother with me. And together we sort of tried to save our family. And that was the inspiration for the journey that Stevie and Elliot go on in this film. So once we sort of figured out the story, we got really excited, and then we pitched around town. We ended up getting the green light from Netflix, and one of the things I really wanted to take full advantage of in this film was everything that the medium of animation offers, right? Especially around performances. So animation is such a versatile medium, right? You can do really nuanced, subtle performances that can rival the best live-action performances and actors, and you can get really pushed caricature, exaggerated performances like in Adventure Time or Looney Tunes. And I'm really greedy as a filmmaker. I wanted both of those in this film. And the fact that this movie took place in the dream world really was sort of the perfect canvas for that, taking advantage of everything that animation offered. So, the human characters really allowed me the opportunity to get those subtle, nuanced performances that I love in live-action filmmaking. And so we shot a lot. We actually looked at a lot of reference of some of my favorite actors and some of my favorite performances from films that I love. Now, one of the things I love about animation is that you get to design your own movie stars. And one of the things that makes a movie star is their appeal. So we spent an inordinate amount of time zeroing in on every single detail of these characters to really maximize their appeal. One of my favorite quotes is that beauty is in the millimeters. So we spent a lot of time making sure that every millimeter of their performance was not only believable, but really beautiful. So in addition to the great live-action film performance reference that we drew from, we also shot a lot of reference on our own. And so these are references of some of that the animators shot just to test out ideas before we committed to animation, because animation is so labor intensive, it's so time consuming. I love showing these because I love embarrassing the animators. We also shot a lot of reference for our non-human characters like Bed. Obviously that was not as successful as the other reference, but we ended up having to use our imaginations a lot. And so, especially for Bed, we weren't sure if it was going to work, because she's a character without a face. How can you get a character like that to emote or for the audience to empathize with her? And it wasn't until this test that was done by one of our animators named Francois Laurent where we realized, oh my gosh, this movie is totally going to work and Bed is totally going to work. What I love so much about this test is that he was able to use her sort of inherent real-world design and build and anthropomorphize her without giving her literal eyes and a mouth, which would have looked really, really bad. So what he did is he took that bottom slat of the bed, pulled it down, and it suddenly becomes her mouth. And then a corner of the bed sheet sort of slips through and becomes her tongue. And then your brain sort of automatically interprets those two stickers that Ellie puts on the foot of her bed as her eyes. And it's this really cool sort of visual illusion that feels really, really dreamlike. For Bed, one of the big challenges was incorporating all of the sort of the character effects in the simulation that we needed to pull off the performance. We used the duvet as sort of reins, and so that was all character effects. And so it was a big collaboration between animation and the simulation team and the character effects team. There were multiple layers of cloth that needed to interact with each other and with the characters. So, all that simulation makes it take a lot of time to render. And so what we did is we had to create like a new sort of workflow for our animation pipeline so that we could animate without getting bogged down with all the simulation. So what we did is we sort of adopted a layered simulation approach where we controlled every single specific garment at one time, which reduced our simulation time and allowed me to really get really specific about the performances without having to worry about all the render time. So Bed was one of our most ambitious characters. Another really ambitious non-human character was Baloney Tony. And like both of these characters gave us the opportunity to really fully utilize the other side of animation's performance capabilities. So, the human characters gave us the subtle, nuanced performances. Baloney Tony, we could really push the caricature. And so I wanted Baloney Tony to move as if he was sort of being puppeted by Elliot or by a kid. And so these are some of the early reference footage shots or footage that we shot just to figure out how Baloney Tony was going to move in the dream world. And that translated into this, which, again, it was one of those aha moments. Like, you see this and you're like, oh my god, this movie's going to work. Like, Baloney Tony is just so funny and cute and quirky just by the way that he walks without saying a single word. So, for Baloney Tony's facial and mouth movements, I'm a big fan of the Muppets, and Kermit is one of my favorite characters of all time, and I really love Kermit's scrunch face. So I was so pleased that the animators were able to work in that scrunch face into the film. The other aspect that I really wanted to take full advantage of in the medium of animation was all the design possibilities it offered for the dreamscapes in the film. So designing the dreamscapes was one of the main reasons I wanted to make a movie about dreams. I really let our team's imaginations run wild with all the limitless possibilities. But I also wanted to stay true to the experience of dreaming. So I don't know about you guys, but for me, the things that happen to me during the day end up seeping their way into my subconscious and then showing up in my dreams at night. And so I wanted to make sure that Stevie and Elliot's real world informed and shaped their dream world. So, for example, in Breakfast Town, when Stevie puts a smiley face on the French toast at the opening of the movie, it manifests itself as this character in Breakfast Town. Or, at the thrift store, Elliot finds the Little Nemo comic, which sets up Bed coming alive, or the Cowboy comic, which sets up Bed as a horse. And I don't know if you guys paid attention to this, but the theme song, or the theme for Bed is a Western. And then the Dynamite Fist manga obviously sets up, their full anime transformation, which is one of my favorite parts of the movie. The other thing that was really great about making an animated dream movie is the transitions between the real world and the dream world. And some of these transitions were things that we could only pull off in animation. So what I loved about these shots is that they're so cinematic, and it's something that you can really only pull off in animation. This shot, too, was like, it's such a surreal shot. It's when she, first enters into Breakfast Town, into the dream world. It's like the first act break. Originally, this shot was, that transition happened over a cut. And narratively, it worked, but there was something magical and cinematic missing. So I tasked my production designer, Steve Pilcher. I said, can you give us something that feels really cinematic and magical and almost Alice in Wonderland-like? And this is what he came up with. So you'll notice at the very beginning of the shot and the very end of the shot, Stevie's in the exact same position. And we had to do that because the surrounding shots had already been locked. So in order for continuity to work, she had to start and end in the same place. The other dreamscapes that we could only pull off in animation was Breakfast Town. Not just visually, but there's sort of tonally like a silliness to Breakfast Town that really only works in animation. So trying to imagine a live action movie with walking, talking breakfast foods, it'd just be like creepy and weird. So we had so much fun really leaning into the fun and the playfulness that only animation can offer. And this is actually one of the first assignments we gave the animators when they joined the team. We just give them these Breakfast Town characters and say, hey, have at it. Let's come up with as many funny gags as you can, and let's see if we can work that into the film. So animation also, allowed us to walk that tightrope between horror and comedy that really would have been impossible to do in live action. Technically, it was. Oops, sorry. Technically, it was a really big challenge because we had to create two versions of each dreamscape, right? So there was a dream version and a nightmare version. And so for Breakfast Town, when the characters turn moldy and the town turns into a nightmare, we used we actually used hair and texture simulation to create the mold. One of the other set pieces that I'm really proud of and I was so excited to bring to life was the sandcastle. And it's really something that you could really kind of only pull off in animation because I wanted it to be like an M.C. Escher painting sort of brought to life. And M.C. Escher, the logic and the physics don't make sense. And so I could really only pull that off in this medium. And then finally, the two most ambitious characters in our film were the Sandman and Night Mara, because they were basically walking, talking visual effects. So the Sandman had this sort of constant trail of sand flowing from his cloak, and there was a softness to his edges. There's supposed to be an image here of Sandman showing the softness of his edges. But we wanted to sort of allude to the softness of the edges of a sand dune that you see in the desert. And so there was constantly particles sort of gently blowing off of him, and that's all simulation and effects work. And Night Mara, she's sort of the yin to Sandman's yang. We wanted to make her out of liquid and ink and mist because, you often find water and sand together in nature. And so we wanted those two characters to feel like they belonged together, but that they were sort of opposites. Night Mara was the most expensive character in the entire film because there's so much simulation and effects work. When we approved an animation shot, it took 11 weeks for us to put it through the entire pipeline and get the final render. Right? So imagine approving an animation shot, putting it through the entire pipeline, and then realizing the smoke is covering her face. You have to go back, start over, reanimate it, put it through, wait another 11 weeks, and hope and pray to God that it works. So yeah, she was definitely the most expensive, the most challenging, but she was also, I think, the coolest character in the film. We wanted her hair to sort of act like a storm that was rolling in, and the mist would sort of continuously flow down her head and her body, and then it had to sort of dissolve and seamlessly transition into the storm around her so that she felt like she was part of the storm. And then one of the sort of key design elements of her was this sort of energy that was radiating from within her, kind of like she was the source of lightning. And so to do that, we sort of created this aqua blue glow that emanated from her eyes and her mouth, and we created this meniscus layer that contained all the light and the ink around her form. So yeah, Night Mara, Sony just did an incredible job with her. I'm so proud of what we accomplished technically and also narratively with her character. And so yeah, I think I just want to give a huge shout out to Sony. I mean, they are kind of the best animation studio in the world right now. I mean, they did K-pop Demon Hunters, which was like amazing. We're hoping to follow in their footsteps, but they're really pushing the medium of animation forward in ways that no other studio in the world is doing right now. And so I feel really lucky that I got to work with them. And I think Sarah, she was working at Sony Pictures Imageworks with us. So yeah, huge shout out to Sarah. Yeah, and then also, obviously, Netflix. I mean, they've been making original films and really, showing leadership in the industry. It's so rare these days to see originals, and Netflix is really, leading the charge on that front. I'll just end by saying, I made this film because I grew up on movies that told me that if I worked hard enough, if I wanted something badly enough, I could make my dreams come true. And I feel like that created this culture, especially in America, especially among Asian American culture, that there's so much pressure to be perfect and to make your dreams come true. And if you can't do that, you feel like something's wrong with you, or that you've done something wrong, or that you're a loser or a failure. And I just don't think that's true. And some level of ambition is great in life. I mean, of course you want to aspire, but it can there is a dark side, and if you sometimes you can get too focused on pursuing a dream and making it come true, and you can get lost in it. And so I really wanted to sort of change the charge around dreams. And conversely, with nightmares, I think they get a bad rap. Obviously, we want to avoid nightmares in life because they're challenging. But I found that in my life, when I'm at my worst, that's when I've learned the most. That's when I've grown the most as a person, and it's what shapes me the most as a person. And that's actually when my friends and family really come out of the woodwork to like get through the challenges of life with me, and my relationships are stronger because of that. So this whole movie was really about me sort of reconciling the fact that life is really, really imperfect. People aren't perfect, families aren't perfect, but that's okay. Actually, when you get through it with the people that you love, that's what gives life meaning. So hopefully that's what you guys got from the film, and hopefully, audiences around the world when it launches in 2.5 hours. Thank you so much.
That amazing presentation, but we want to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm one of the producers on the film, and as you saw in the presentation, one of the folks that jumped ship from Pixar when Alex asked us to and excited us about
One of the crazy cuckoo banana people.
My background is in production, and it's been, I'm just like so excited that it's coming out. I can't believe it. It's pretty cool.
Aww. Actually, my first question was, you both love Pixar. That's bold. Am I wrong? I see some people nodding. Why did you both decide to take that risk?
Because we were crazy. No, it was really, I sort of alluded to it in the presentation, but I was so excited about what Netflix was doing with streaming. I felt like because the model is different, they can take a lot bolder risks when it comes to storytelling, and they were doing that with House of Cards, they were doing that with Orange is the New Black, and I just knew that eventually they were going to get into animation. And so I was really excited about the opportunities of telling bolder, more challenging stories in this medium that I love so much. So that's why I left. I don't know why you left.
You! You inspired me. You compelled me in Stanley. I think
Coerced.
I think so much of it was an opportunity to learn and grow at a faster pace. Setting out, getting away from the mothership, taking everything I'd learned from Pixar, but trying to apply it where I had more responsibility was exciting opportunity for us. And I think like what you're talking about with that bold time, I think, we've been jumping around on a couple sequels, and it was exciting to be like, let's try to make our own original stories.
How did that conversation go down? Do you remember?
I tapped him when I said
Yeah.
that.
And what was your reaction?
I don't even
I
remember.
feel like it was multiple
Gradual?
conversations over a long period of time. I think
Yeah, I was like, hey, I got this crazy idea. He was like, what? He's like, don't bother me. I'm like busy, finishing this show. I was like, okay.
a lot of our friendship was I would commute into San Francisco from Pixar in Emeryville, and Alex would be waiting for the Emery Go-Round shuttle in front of Pixar.
So this is, I sold my car because I parked in Steve Jobs' parking spot. I know. And obviously, it was the day that he announced the acquisition of Disney or Pixar by Disney, and he usually never shows up. During orientation, the one rule they said is just don't park in Steve Jobs' spot. But they didn't show us where it was, and so usually it's first come, first serve. So I had just started at the company. I was there for like 6 months, and I had this like kind of roadster. I was like just a douchebag. And I had just cleaned my car that day, and I got to work a little late, and there was no parking spots available. And I saw one in the back of my rearview mirror in the corner. It was really far away, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to park there. And I parked in backwards, and it was like a convertible. So my rear window was really, the visibility was very low. Parked, got out, went to work. That day, Steve Jobs calls a town hall meeting. They announced the acquisition of Pixar by Disney. Then at lunch, we're all talking about the acquisition, and somebody goes, hey, did you guys hear some idiot parked in Steve Jobs' parking spot? I'm like, what idiot did that? And as I'm going home to my car, I'm getting closer and closer, and I see my parking spot is different than everybody else's. There's like a yellow rectangle that says reserved. I'm like, oh my God, that's me. So I quickly get in my car, I drive home, and I'm like tossing and turning all night. I'm like, I'm totally fired. So so I don't drive my car in the next day. And I have not registered my car yet because I'm still relatively a new employee. So I go in, I check my office, email no firing, no call that says I'm fired, no pink slips. I'm like, okay, I guess I got away with it. And then the next day, I'm still feeling really bad, so I tell my boss, I'm like, hey, Mark, you know that guy that parked in Steve Jobs' parking spot? That was me. I was like, should I apologize to him? He's like, are you crazy? Don't tell anybody. So I kept that secret till today. And it's okay, I don't work at Pixar anymore. And I was so scared to lose my job that I sold my car that weekend. And I just took the bus, the BART, and the bus in, and that's why Tim would pick me up sometimes.
We have long conversations on the bridge about our future and aspirations and things, and he just, that's like our friendship. So real.
I would say didn't park in Steve Jobs' parking spot, we would not be here.
What incredible war! Can we just get a round of applause for that story? That's wild. I also want to talk to you about cuckoo a little bit more. So the name cuckoo is derived from the Chinese word ku, meaning cry, reflecting the studio's goal of producing stories that make people cry tears of laughter and tears of pathos. I'm like crying now. Why am I crying already? What stories do you believe are important for Cuckoo to tell? And I just wanted to say, during the presentation, I could see your eyes getting a little bit watery when you were talking about your family story. You know, it's brave. It's scary to tell stories like that. Is that what you all are trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we want to tell stories that may not be told by the bigger studios. I mean, we're an independent company. I mean, obviously we're working with Netflix, which is a huge studio, but our ethos as a company, as a studio, and as filmmakers is really, we're very, independent. And we're really inspired by the Bay Area filmmakers. There's a lot of independent filmmakers up there. I mean, George Lucas, believe it or not, was an independent filmmaker. He just got really rich with Star Wars. Francis Ford Coppola also. I mean, there's such a legacy of independent filmmakers in the Bay Area, and we want to continue that legacy.
We're in the Saul Zaentz Media Center. There's that rich tradition.
Yeah.
But I think what it is that it's bold, it's grounded, and I think I lost my train of thought for a second.
No, I mean, for the name of the studio is really reminiscent, or it really does capture what the emotions that I want to experience when I go and watch a movie, right? So the movies I love, when I go and I'm laughing so hard I'm crying, and then I'm feeling something so deeply that I'm crying, and so those are the two sort of poles and of emotions that I want to capture in a film and in a story, and then also everything else in between. So that's why our film has this really heartwarming story about a kid trying to keep her family together, and then also laser farts.
I mean, I think to back up on my thread, the tears of laughter, tears of pathos, I think Alex was really trying to evoke the classic Greek drama masks, right, of tragedy and comedy. And I think, hopefully, we talked a lot about the kind of heart of the story, but we hope it's also really funny and entertaining and adventurous as well.
Definitely, so many genres covered. I also want to talk to you about this. In your dream centers, run a mixed family. I'm half Chinese. Any half Asians out there?
Yeah.
So obviously, we have a second or third generation Asian American family here. Why was that decision made, and why a biracial family?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I'm not biracial, but me and Stanley Moore, who is our co-founder, he helped me create this story. He's white American, and so we felt like it would be a good representation of both of our points of view. Eric Benson, who ended up being my co-director, also is white American, and so I think it just made sense that both of our cultural backgrounds, of our specific sort of cultural heritage, was represented in characters in this film. So yeah, I think that was why we chose to make these characters mixed race. I haven't seen a lot of mixed race characters in film, especially in animated film. I grew up half my life in Hong Kong. There's a lot of mixed race people there because of the British influence. A lot of my friends were mixed race, and I always just thought that they had such an interesting life and perspective on life, on the world, because they had the benefit of two different cultures. And also we have mom and dad having obviously marital and relational problems, and I thought it might really help actually if the cultural backgrounds and points of view that they both brought to the relationship was coming from a different place, and it could help sort of create some friction and tension there.
Very cool. Tim, were you part of the decision-making process at all, or were you just like, cool, let's do it?
I think we liked to joke that Alex likes to say it took 9 years in total from like conception to it being released. So it was like a 9 year, it takes 9 months to make a baby, and it took 9 years to make this film baby. And I think we think of the film as like their film baby.
Our film baby.
Okay, very cool. And Netflix Animation has incredible API-centric content. I got a long list here, so give me some little cheers here. Titles like The Monkey King, Ultraman Rising, Gentry Chow versus the Underworld. Little tiny one, you may have heard of it, K-pop Demon Hunter. Yes. Yeah, I know, maybe you've heard of it. But how does it feel to see these API stories being told?
Oh, I mean, it's the best. I mean, I was so fortunate that I spent half my life in Hong Kong, where I was part of the ethnic majority, and I can't tell you that there's something so powerful about not being the minority, not being the other, and so I feel like these stories are helping people who are in those circumstances feel less othered and feeling like they're more part of the mainstream, and so I think it's really I love it. I think it's super important.
Tim, why do you think it's important?
I mean, I think we're excited to redefine what is default. My niece and nephews are also mixed race, and that wasn't like a driving decision point to all of this, but I'm just so excited that they'll have this. They can be proud that their uncle made it and maybe see themselves in those characters.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really deliberate choice for us to not make their ethnic identity or their cultural heritage be their main defining characteristic in this film. I think there's a place for that, but I wanted to expand the types of stories that were being told that featured API characters. And so, a lot of times, especially, just like 4 or 5 years ago, anytime you saw an Asian American character, an Asian character, they were the token Asian character. It was about them being othered or being the minority and wrestling with that. And I think there's a place for that because it resonates with a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But it's also very othering, and I wanted, whenever you see a white character, they're not wrestling with their identity, And so I thought, well, why can't we have like an Asian character that's not wrestling with their, their cultural identity? It's just more universal. Like they're dealing with a situation where their family is like sort of falling apart, and that's across cultures. Everybody experiences that, and so that sort of normalization of minority characters, API characters, was very deliberate on our end.
Alex, this is off the script, to be honest, but we had a conversation earlier, and I believe you told me Squid Games and K-pop Demon Hunters are Netflix's like 2 most popular titles.
Yeah.
And I just think that's wild. Can we get a clap for that? I was like, that's just awesome. And so I wanted to ask both of you, how have you seen things evolve during your career when it comes to API stories, and how does it feel to be at this point?
I mean, it's changed a lot. I've been in the industry for 20 years now. When I was at Pixar, you just didn't see people of our, ethnic background in leadership positions, and that has an effect on you, There's also some sort of minor, subtle, unconscious sort of racism a lot. Like when I worked on Cars 2, and John Lasseter gave me the wasabi scene because he's like, oh, if he's Asian, he'll know how to do that. And I'm like, well, I'm not Japanese, but okay, whatever, I'll do it. So it's stuff like that. And it's not malicious in intent, but it's just sort of like just an unawareness, And now I think with all the things that have happened with DEI and Black Lives Matters and Asian hate, it's really brought that to the forefront of culture, and so people are more aware, which is, I think, great. I mean, awareness is really helpful. Mm-hmm. I think it's there's still a long way to go. I mean, Simu's in this movie, and he talks to me about how even he's incredibly successful, right? But even for him, it's hard to. The number of roles that are available to him are so limited because just by the nature of the stories that they're telling in Hollywood, like a World War II story, like how many there just aren't characters that have Chinese descent that could play that he could play in stories like that, and so I think the change that needs to happen is that the people who are telling the stories need to come from backgrounds that we have so that we can start telling stories like the stories that we care about that are important to us so that we can give these opportunities to people in our community.
Yeah, I think I was going to say something about Simu as well, but you beat me to it. I mean, I think to double down on the folks behind the camera and behind the scenes, those opportunities, especially like not my parents not being sure that I could work in this industry and have a career. I think step one was them visiting Pixar when I started there and being like, okay, this is a stable company. And then I think step two, when I left, that was very scary for them. But I think to get to this point where our projects were starting to come out, that was a huge change. And even to have like Dan Lin at the head of Netflix, like those are really exciting. I think we stand on those who came before us. We get that push, and you keep trying to make sure both in front of and behind the camera.
Yeah, but I think having Squid Games and K-pop being so successful is so important, because ultimately the studios are corporations, right? They care about the numbers, they care about the bottom line, and so they're, you know, they might do some stuff out of, you know, the goodness of their hearts, but it's going to be really limited. At the end of the day, what they really care about is the bottom line, and so showing that. You're not doing our community you're not doing us a favor by greenlighting our shows. It's really good business for you, and the proof is in the pudding, right? Now the two most viewed pieces of, you know, the most viewed show and the most viewed film are, you know, Asian or have Asian characters that are Asian originated. So, yeah, I think it's fantastic.
I think that speaks to how international of an audience, I mean, not just Netflix, but all of the entertainment industry is getting to, and how that is just really exciting. You know?
Well, we've seen progress, right? And we're really excited about that. And Hollywood is making space for API, which is incredible to see. But you have Cuckoo Studios, Chinese takeout films. How do we continue to help API stories be seen and heard?
Well, you got to support the API stories that are out there now.
Support!
Because
hold up your little stuffies, everybody. Post about the movie. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's what it comes down to. It's just it's a business, right? And so if the studios see these movies are generating views, they're generating income, and it's beating out other, you know, stories that are more sort of default mainstream, they're going to pay attention, and that's really, it's got to start there. I think you have to win them over on their terms, which is, you know, in the corporate metrics that they care about.
Tim's like, I agree. I concur. Okay, also worth noting that In Your Dreams had a lot of anime influences. Did anybody see that in there? So we chatted about this. We were on a call, and I was like, okay, I think I saw a little Pokemon. I think I saw a little Sailor Moon. You know, and I was like, tell me, am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. Yeah, the Pokemon cards are actually not real Pokemon cards because we couldn't do the license for that. But they're obviously modeled after Pokemon cards. So again, I grew up half my life in Hong Kong, and I was exposed to a lot of anime growing up, and I loved it. I was a big fan of Dragon Ball Z. I was also a big fan of Sailor Moon. I didn't tell anybody at the time. I just thought it was so cool. So Stevie's transformation is totally influenced by Sailor Moon. So those are some of my favorite parts of the movie, because they feel so specific to my, you know, life and my point of view and my, you know, upbringing. And I, you know, because I love animation so much, I love all the wide spectrum that animation offers. I'm so glad that I was able to do, you know, really sort of, again, nuanced, subtle performances with the human characters, and then push it all the way to 2D like anime. So yeah, that's sort of where it comes from.
Studio Ghibli too, right?
Yeah, Studio Ghibli.
I think one layer deeper down is, of course, our love, Stanley 2 of Studio Ghibli,
Yeah.
And like,
The Sandlings are sort of, straight, you know, an homage to the Soot Sprites in Spirit of the Way and Totoro. So yeah, there's just all these sorts of Asian anime specific influences that have seeped their way into the film.
Very cool. Okay, you might have kind of answered this already during the presentation, but I was going to ask, what was the hardest part of making In Your Dreams? I heard you talk about Nightmara a lot, but I don't know, what pops to your head first when you're like, this was a lot?
I mean, technically she was definitely the most challenging, but I think technical challenges have like technical solutions. It was really the ending of the film that was really challenging.
Oh, okay.
I think, you know, obviously this movie is about a family that sort of has an uncertain future. And we tried a lot of different versions of the ending. So originally we had the parents separated. They ended up getting divorced. But every time we showed it, it was so was so disappointing for people, and it didn't really leave any room for optimism or hope. And that's not what I wanted to leave the audience with. That's not the feeling or the emotion that I wanted to leave the audience with. But then when we kept them together, people were like, "What? I don't buy that. That's so dishonest," you know. And of course, you want to be honest and truthful in your work. And so, but you're just like, okay, well, they're not going to get together. They're not getting divorced. Like, what's the solution? There's no in between. But then I get this is, getting really personal and probably TMI. But so, this story was inspired by, when my mom left when I was young. She ended up coming back, and then in college, she left again. When my brother went off to college, they were sort of empty nesters, and my mom always wanted to be an actress, and so she moved to LA. My dad was, they were living in Hong Kong at the time, so she moved to LA, lived here by herself for like 3 years and tried to make it. And she was, at that point already in her like 50s, and it was, hard. It's already hard for women in that age to, make it in Hollywood. And if you don't have any sort of history or background, it's near impossible. So she ended up going back to Hong Kong and getting back together with my dad. And then everything seemed fine. And then when I was making this movie in 2020, like October, like 8 months into production, 10 months into production. The pandemic was, sort of 6 months in. We were 6 months into the pandemic. My dad was home a lot because he was working remotely. And I think, he just got on my mom's nerves. So she's like, "I'm divorcing your father." And so I had to go back to Hong Kong and sort of mediate the situation for them. I ended up, getting stuck there because they closed the border. So I made half of this movie remotely from Hong Kong, working California hours from midnight to 10 a.m. every day, and then, prepping the day's work for the next day, and sleeping from like 3 o'clock to like 10 p.m. every day for 18 months. So it was gnarly. But the reason I tell this story is because my parents, they basically like been in and out of each other's lives relationally for my whole life. And when I thought about that, I was like, you know what? It actually doesn't really matter what officially the label of my parents, whether or not they're together or apart. Like, we are always going to be a family. Definitely a very imperfect family. But my mom's always going to be my mom. My dad's always going to be my dad. We're always going to love each other. They're always going to love each other in their own weird, strange way. And so that to me was like, oh, that's actually what this movie is about. That it doesn't matter what the labels are. Like, you're always going to be a family. And so what we tried to do at the ending is, when mom and dad are, coming out with that last box, it says fragile on there, and that's sort of a metaphor for their relationship. And then when they're trying to, put the final box into the truck, you can tell they're not really on the same page. She's going left, he's going right. And then, when they drive off into the sunset, into the horizon, it feels like, okay, they finally figured it out, right? And then the tailgate opens and all the boxes fall out. And it's just like life just never can, stand still. Things are always changing. Life is always messy. But then they go and they pick up the mess together. And that's kind of what I feel life is like. And that's what my family has been like. And that's kind of what I wanted to capture with this film. So I'm really proud of the ending. I think it was really hard to find it, but we ended up finding it, and I think we're really proud of it.
Wait, so the hardest part was the family stuff, not being nocturnal for 18
That's an incredible behind the scenes story. That's super cool. Did you have any moment that you were like, this is really hard?
I mean, I think truly we come from a pedigree of story is king, and I think solving these story problems is the most important and the most difficult. From where I sit, definitely a huge challenge was producing this film during a lot of peak COVID. That and as an independent studio, where you maybe have less infrastructure already ready to go, but I think we were just so lucky to have fantastic crew from around the world, and just like a great collaborative spirit.
Awesome. And then what was the easiest part? What just like came together so well? Was it casting or character designs, or what pops into your head for that one?
The easiest was, some of the needle drops were really obvious. We were like, oh, we've got to have the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams. We wanted Enter Sandman, but we couldn't afford it for the longest time. And then we were so lucky that Scott Stuber saw a screening before he left. And he was like, "You gotta have Enter Sandman." We're like, "We know, but it's really expensive." He's like, "I'll take care of it," and so he got us the money. Yeah, so I think a lot of the song choices were relatively straightforward, and I mean, it was challenging because there's so many songs that are about dreams, so that, you know, it's kind of like an embarrassment of riches, and there's too many options, so how do you choose? So we tried to choose songs that were really iconic but not too obvious. You know, like for the longest time we had the Hall & Oates, "You Make My Dreams Come True." That opened the movie, and we loved that, but it was like, it's kind of too obvious. And so there were a lot of songs like that where we were like, okay, let's take the, you know, let's dig one layer deeper. You know, Stevie is named after Stevie Nicks, and so the Fleetwood Mac song "Dreams" was like in there, and we were like, but there was that meme. Do you remember that guy who was like holding onto the back of the trucks?
Yes.
So that happened around the time we were making this movie. I was like, oh, people are just gonna think of that meme, so we can't use that song. But yeah, I think the music was pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were always so inspired by the work of the animation team too. That the reference videos that you showed were always so entertaining, and the team at ImageWorks was so great. Yeah.
Right. Such a major milestone, though. Looking back, what do you think has been the biggest lesson that you've learned?
That life is not perfect and movies aren't perfect. I think I think really the biggest thing is animation is so collaborative as a medium. Film is incredibly collaborative, but animation, you know, they say it takes a village, right? With animation, it takes a village of villages. And I think the film is so much better than I could have dreamed or imagined because of the collaboration with, you know, people like Tim, with my co-director Eric, with Stanley, with my heads of story, my production designer. They elevated the film so much in a way that I couldn't even dream that it could happen, because I just don't have the level of expertise that they do. So I think really leaning on your team and people that you trust and you really admire and respect is so key to making something successful. So yeah, that was probably the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, I'll double down on what Alex is saying, and just kind of, I'm always taken by the end credits, and to see something like 1,000 names that ultimately cross the screen. They've touched the film in tiny bits, maybe at the very end in post-production, or every single day, like Alex. It's maybe not like a lesson so much as just like an eternal takeaway I'll have, is that team.
I have one more.
Okay.
This one's probably a little juicier. So I think it's also really important to be honest and tell the truth in your work. There was... in the film, you know, when Stevie decides to stay in the dream world, that was a really controversial character choice, and there was a lot of pushback from the studio, even internally, because they felt like that is such a bad decision for a character to make, and it's almost like borderline like suicide. It's like giving up on life, and so it was really hard for a lot of people to stomach. But I just felt like I've been there. I've been in those moments where life is so hard you just don't want to wake up. And I fought for that really hard. And, you know, I had to tell the team, I mean, you remember these debates that we had. I basically said, normally I don't like pulling the director trump card. I usually like to lead by consensus, and I feel like if people aren't agreeing, then something's missing. There's probably a better idea out there. But with this, it was just, there was no sort of emergent idea that was coming, and so I kind of just told everybody, look, I gotta have to make this call because it's what my intuition is telling me, and this is my truth, and so if it's wrong, it's on me, and if it's right, then great, you know, then the movie's gonna be better for it. So I think you have to be honest, and just, you know, be truthful. And honor, you know, the stories and the character choices that you really believe in.
I was just going to say, but not for lack of due diligence, and it was not, I mean...
Yeah, we labored over it and fought over it for like months, and I was, it was, well, ultimately I just had to, make the call. And I stand by it. I think it was the right call.
Wow, I'm taking notes from the lessons that you all have learned. My next question was, we have a ton of Asian creatives in this room right now. Do you have any advice for them? Like any words of inspiration? How can they get their stories told?
I mean, you got to tell the truth and be honest, you know, I think, and don't be afraid to tell your story. I also think, you know, you have to think about the business side of it. Like, you're selling a product, you know, to a company, and that product is then being, you know, essentially sold to an audience. And so you have to convince people that that your product is worth buying. And the way we did that was, you know, we were lucky that we came from Pixar, and that opened a lot of doors for us, but it didn't give us a green light. I mean, people were like, okay, we want to hear what you have to, you know, the stories that you have to pitch us, but we're definitely not going to give you a green light just because you're from Pixar. And so the onus was on us to prove to them that we had the chops and the talent and the experience to take on something like this. But it's kind of a catch-22. Like, how do you prove to somebody that you can direct if you haven't been given the chance to direct? And it's not their responsibility to give me that opportunity. So I put it on us I was like, okay, how can I show people that we can actually, that we're really adept at our craft and they're really great storytellers without actually spending $100 million on a movie? And what we did is we beatboarded the entire story. It took us like 6 to 8 months to do it. We leaned into our strengths. You know, I came from story, so I could, you know, storyboard really well and quickly. Stanley also did. So we beatboarded the entire movie, and we almost put together like a 2-man show where we went in. It was kind of like the presentation I did, where like you would just go through all these storyboards and concept art.
They would practice so much.
Yeah, and we rehearsed like it was a performance, and then we would go in it and we'd put the show on, and inevitably people would be laughing and they'd be crying at the end of it, and it felt to them like they had just watched a movie without actually watching a movie, and that gave them the confidence in us as filmmakers. And so I think the advice is you gotta prove to people that you can do it. You gotta show, not tell, because anybody can say I'm a good director and trust me. They're not gonna believe you. You have to show them. And so that onus is on you. And so you have to do whatever it takes to prove that.
I mean, that's amazing advice, and I echo it completely. And I'll maybe drill down to maybe a more rudimentary version of that too, which is I always try to talk to people about finishing things. And Ira Glass, who hosts This American Life, he has this famous speech, and he always talks about when you start out, your taste exceeds your skill. You grew up watching so many things, you studied so many things, and then what you can actually execute doesn't reach it. And it can be very discouraging, and when you're doing your own projects, you say it's not done yet. And you can say it's not done yet for forever. And it's really pushing yourself to, you know, when I was younger and at Pixar, I had friends, and outside of work we would do speed filmmaking competitions, make music videos and these shorts. And I think a lot of what Alex saw in me and trusted me to help him was not just my time at Pixar. It was these side indie little projects where I put a team together of 5 people with no money and just finished something, right? And without finishing something, looking at it when it's done in the naked light of day and seeing everything that you wish you could have done better, that you actually crystallize those learnings, I feel. Because if you delay it, then you can kind of excuse yourself. You can write it off. And so that's maybe what I would add.
Great. My last question is there anything you want to say to this crowd? You all have been amazing. Such a wonderful audience. So attentive. Love the presentation. They're so supportive of you. Anything you want to say to them?
I mean, we love you guys. Yeah, thanks for coming out. I know it's late on a Thursday night. So yeah, I'm so glad that you guys got to see it on the big screen. And yeah, please, you know, if you like the film, you know, share it to your friends. You know, we want to get those views up as much as possible. So I know you've seen it already once, but maybe go and watch it again in 3 hours. And I just learned this, but the double thumbs up rate button, like that really affects the algorithm, and it, you know, triggers it to send it and recommend it to other people and other accounts. So if you guys like the movie, please give it a double thumbs up. But yeah, more than anything, I'm just so grateful that you guys came, and I hope you like the movie. I mean, I always think about movie making as like, it's like cooking, you know, like when you cook and you invite friends over, it's a way of tangibly showing people that you love them, right, without being creepy. So, it's like you put all your heart and your energy and your passion into something, and then you give it to them as a tangible thing, and then they can eat it and it nourishes them. And it's the same way I think about movies. Like, movies to me are just a way for me, it's like a vehicle for me to like love audiences, and it's something that they can receive into their life and hopefully enriches their lives and brings them emotion and joy. And so, yeah, thanks for letting me love you.
I can't beat the cooking. I mean, this guy is such a good chef too, so I feel like he's cooked me some amazing meals too.
I love you, Tim.
I love you too.
Okay, everybody. So